Hey gamers, Maniac here with another Tales from IT. I got a cool Tales from IT story that just recently happened, and I wanted to talk about it. The vast majority of people that I know that own Macs bought them around the year 2010 or 2011, plus or minus a year or two. So those Macs no longer have hardware support for Apple. They are no longer eligible for upgrades for things like the operating system or anything along those lines, because modern operating systems like Big Sur are just not compatible anymore with computers that old. Some of them have smashed their screens, some of them have smashed their touchpads, most of them have smashed at least a couple of keys on their keyboard, but they're just continuing to use them like it's no big deal. Until recently, when Apple decided to release the M1 line of computers, the Mac Mini M1 and now the Mac Air, and I think the Mac Pro, the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro M1, at the prices that they have released these at. These are very capable machines, and these are very reasonable prices for these capable machines. While they can't be upgraded, they're pretty powerful enough, even stock. So a lot of the users that I've been saying, can you please get a new system so that I can make sure that you have a transfer, that we can be absolutely certain that we can have a data transfer that is, make sure that it doesn't miss anything. They have been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, and now it's like, all right, now we go. My time has come. If you have a 2010 Mac of any type around 2009, 2010, this is what you're going to need for a data transfer if you don't have backups, or if you want this process to go quickly. You're going to need this 9-pin FireWire cable. You're going to need, by the way, that cable was about $10 on Amazon. You're going to need this FireWire to Thunderbolt cable, which I believe is about $30. And you're going to need this Thunderbolt 2 to Thunderbolt 3 cable, which is $50. Now, what if you've got a 2015 Mac or something along those lines, something that would actually use an earlier Thunderbolt port? Got that too. You're going to need this $40 cable. This is a straight up Thunderbolt 2 cable. And you're still going to need this Thunderbolt 2. All right, goofball. Only goes in one way on this one. If you have a 2015 Mac, this is what you need to pay for. This is about at least $90. But I can get you a total data restoration with this cable in probably not even an hour, depending upon how much data is on your old machine. And that's where this story starts. I had a person the other day contact me out of the blue and say that they had a 2015 Mac that they were planning on trading in, and they wanted to buy a new Mac so that their data could be recovered. They had no backups, but their computer was in perfect working order. And I believed it. Those 2015 Macs, as long as you don't smash them, they're pretty good. So I told the user, go to the store right now and buy an M1 Mac. Doesn't matter what model, as long as the storage capacity that you purchase is of a higher storage capacity than the computer that you currently have. I later took inventory of it. I think they had like a 256 gigabyte drive. They were only using not even 128 gigs of it. And the computer that they purchased was like a 512 gig drive. Something along those lines, M1. So the user did exactly what I said. Computer came in, and I'm off to the races to help them. After I determine what high-speed ports are what, I assembled this little cable. Well, first thing I had to do was take inventory of everything that was on the system. What users were on there, what programs were on there, where the files were located and everything. This user was basically, how do I put this? Did you ever see the movie Into the Spider-Verse when Miles Morales looks at Olivia Octavius's computer for the first time? That is what I deal with on a nearly every job basis. Even my fiance is guilty of it. I guess dragging and dropping into the Macintosh hard drive icon is just too hard or something. Or for you Windows users, the My Documents folder. It's just that's hard, you know. By the way, if you do that, that's the reason why your computer is taking forever to turn on and turn off. So just keep that in mind. So, needless to say, pretty easy to determine. And then I start taking inventory of all the programs. Now, here's just a little heads up. The vast majority of legacy Mac programs are not compatible with the M1. But then again, most of them, especially the really old ones, aren't compatible with Big Sur in general. Whether you have an Intel M1 or whether you have an Intel computer or an M1 computer, after what happened, I think it was 1014 or 1015, I can't remember. All 32-bit programs just will not run at all. Even through it's just been disabled because Mac turned that off. And now it seems that there's no compatibility between the M1 processor and the x64 processor. But that having been said, Apple is providing the development tools, and it's very likely that most of that software will be brought over with just updates and stuff like that. So hold your horses on that. And in the interim, until if you need to do anything along those lines to if there's an absolute program that you must use that is currently not compatible, you can just use the iPad or the iPhone version for right now in emulation. I'm sure it's probably there. So I took inventory of all the programs, and it was pretty standard what they were using. They were using PDFs, JPEGs. The basics were on there. Chrome. A couple of other programs. I asked them if the Office Suite was on there. They said no, that was wrong. The Office Suite was Microsoft Office Suite was on there. Pages, Numbers, that was all on there, of course. The iWork Suite, that was all on there. But that was no big deal. So, as I'm finished taking inventory of everything. I say what will and won't transfer. I said we're going to transfer over all your files. We're going to transfer over your profiles. We're going to transfer over all your settings. So don't worry about any of that. Your programs, on the other hand, I'm a little worried about compatibility. And I explained what I just explained to you. And my client was perfectly understandable about this. She basically said, well, don't transfer over what you think. I said, well, first off, the iWork Suite and everything else is probably going to be already on there. That's going to be fully compatible. Office, no. And on top of that, they were using a work license, which wouldn't have worked. They were going to be returning that computer with the work license anyway for the Microsoft Office. So that was not, I said Microsoft Office, even if I did transfer, it wouldn't work for a couple of reasons. So don't, we're not going to transfer that. And then we just went on a little bit more about a couple of other things. But for the most part, I said I wasn't going to be transferring programs. The majority of the programs were already going to be on there, and anything we absolutely had to get, we're just going to reinstall. They said, fine. So this is what you do. If you're using a 2015 Mac, you shut off the old Mac, you hold down the T button, you turn it on as you're holding down the T button, and you wait for a weird little logo to show up on the screen. Your old Mac is now a hard drive. Unless it's encrypted, you should be able to access all the files that are on that system remotely. The only problem is that the only way that you can access those files is with the Thunderbolt 2 port. USB network, nope. So you better have a Thunderbolt 2 cable. And remember, the new Macs do not come with Thunderbolt 2 support. All their Thunderbolt ports are all this USB-C. So you have to get an adapter. Or you could hire me, who already has the adapters. And by the way, if you're older, you use FireWire. I'm not kidding. Yeah. So you need to use 3 adapters if it's like that old. Apple loves changing their ports, don't they? I mean, I'm hopeful. I really am hopeful that they continue to use the Thunderbolt 3 for a while. It's very likely that they will, so this might be sticking around for probably at least another couple of years. But here's to hoping it's not messed up that much. So I do that. I start connecting the cables. They fit. I connect it into the Thunderbolt port as on for the new computer, the USB-C port. And I turn on the new computer. It takes a few minutes for the new computer to detect, because it does say when you start up a new Mac, hi, do you want to set this up as a new machine? But once you tell it your language and your region and give it your Wi-Fi information and stuff, it's going to ask you, is this a new machine? Would you like me to load backup data or something? Now, like I said, my previous user did not have any backup data, either on a physical drive or on iCloud. But the computer was functional. The computer was perfectly functional. There was nothing wrong with the computer. Again, it was relatively new. It was a work computer. And thankfully, there were no work restrictions on it. I took inventory of that. The drive wasn't encrypted and a bunch of other things. They had user passwords and profiles and that sort of thing, but that was no big deal. So once I told it, no, I want to transfer data from another source, and I plugged this cable into it, after about a good minute or two of it searching, it found the old computer, and it started taking inventory of everything that was on it. This is the tip. If there was any tip that I would give you for this, for any of this, if you're going to if you're going to set up a new Mac M1, and you intend to transfer your data from a Mac, from an older Mac, and you don't have a backup drive, this is not, if you have a backup drive, just plug in your backup drive and that's it. This is what you do. Go to data migration. Don't run Time Machine. Don't try to load Time Machine. Data migration. It'll detect the old computer through either this cable or through the backup drive. This will take a lot less time than the backup drive will. The backup drive will take probably 2 to 3 times longer, so be aware of that. And then it will take an inventory of everything that's on that computer, and it will ask you, what do you want to transfer? Transfer your profile? Transfer any miscellaneous data? Transfer your settings. Whatever's not compatible will just be deleted, so don't worry about that part. I know that there can be setting incompatibilities and stuff like that. Those can always just be deleted, and Apple will usually just reset, to defaults, or ask you for settings that it needs to know for like new computers, like things like Touch ID and stuff. It will just ask you when you start up about those settings, so don't worry about anything that's missing. But don't transfer your programs. I can't stress this enough. One, it'll just take extra time, and you're going to have to either update or reinstall those programs anyway. Or two, they don't have updates and they're incompatible with the M1 processor, so what's the point? You'll just have to delete them anyway and wait for a new version to come out, if that'll even happen. There's no x86, there's no x64 emulation on the M1. There's only iPad and iPhone emulation, so bear that in mind. So you'll get this screen. And then we transferred. Once the transfer was complete, which did not take that long, it would have, trust me, I've done this on backups. This is the first time I'd ever done computer-to-computer transfer for this sort of thing that wasn't over Ethernet. And by the way, the M1 computers don't even have, the M1 Airs don't even have Ethernet connections anyway. So that's not an option. And I don't think they allow wireless transfer, at least not like that. It started, it rebooted, and then it started asking questions for things like, do you want to set up Touch ID? Do you want to set up, do you want to give me your iTunes account information, your Apple ID account information, so I can set up things like iTunes and iCloud and stuff like that? You can choose to ignore that. You can choose not to. That's your call. We set these up on a case-by-case basis. And then the computer booted. User had all their files in the same place. Passwords were passwords. Account names hadn't changed. They logged in, no problem. And then we got into checking everything. Because the system had launched with the stock version of Big Sur, it came with pretty much all the iWork suite, GarageBand, pages, numbers, not slides, the presentation software, all that stuff was all in there. We had to install Chrome, but there is a Google Chrome version that is compatible with the M1 processor. It is not installed by default. You have to tell Chrome to install the M1 version. So you have to know that you have an M1 computer. And when that happened, when we got Chrome working, all of our stuff just automatically transferred into Chrome. So my guess is that Chrome kept some settings that were part of the transfer or something. So all of our Chrome settings automatically transferred and automatically activated, which was good. We had to fool around with some of the plugins and stuff like that. I had to rip a couple plugins out. I had to put a few plugins back, that sort of thing, just to get full compatibility. But that was relatively painless. And beyond top of that had to do with the fact that their Chrome was very messy. They had tons and tons of obsolete bookmarks. They had tons of obsolete, or in one case, malicious add-ons installed that had to be ripped out and assessed. So please keep that in mind when you're, when at least in that case, please keep your Chrome nice and tidy if you're going to do this process. And if your Chrome is not nice and tidy, just notify your user in advance, your technician in advance if you're, that it's not. But yeah, whatever transferred. Once we got all the account information logged in, that took the longest. What took the longest was the user remembering things like the passwords, that sort of thing. So that was a little frustrating to wait for, login information for that sort of thing. You tested peripherals, iPhone, make sure that was working and everything. They were very excited about the fact that they could just simply push a button and all the iCloud stuff that they had stored, photographs and stuff like that, would just automatically download to the computer. They were very excited about that. And I told them, obviously, if I was to do it for you, you'd be paid for that, but you can certainly just push this button and just wait for it to download on your own time. Obviously, you'll have the computer for a while. And there was more than enough space on the computer. They bought a premium storage. And then I just wiped the old computer after the user was satisfied enough with what had transferred and compatibility with everything. They were concerned about, like I said, their Google program. So once they realized that most of everything was runnable from within Chrome, and I told them flat out things like, as far as I can tell, there's no Google Drive version for the M1 yet. There's no Google Drive app. I haven't seen it, at least. Chrome, yes, not Google Drive though. So maybe post a comment if that is released so I can tell them. But I didn't see it. And that's basically it. I intend to do this again. They had a Mac Mini that I had upgraded recently that probably has got about 2 or 3 more years. So I'm just certain that I'm going to need to use this cable again. God, actually, I'm probably going to be using this cable again. I have another couple of people that I know that are still slogging around their 2010 or 2011s. And by the way, if you're still slogging those systems around, do not use them. If they're still working, put them on ice until you can get the data off of them. Because remember, there's no data recovery of a Mac to a PC. At least not without at least some type of at least without a working system, at least. So keep that all in mind, guys. I hope you enjoyed this Tales from IT. Until next time, my name is Maniac with GamingSys.net. Take care, over and out.